Welcome to Wednesday Night Undressed, another indefatigable exercise in futility. Let me introduce our panel for tonight's debate. The Magic, Dr. Orlando.
Yo.
The Dark Lord of Transylvanian Pheromones. Evo.
Yes, I'm here.
Even off.
Yes.
Stroked, not shaken or
Not
stirred.
stirred, stroked.
Yes. The indefatigable Kathleen Taylor.
Hello.
And me, Jeremy Taylor. And without further ado, we want to be a bit more specific, tied it down, smaller panel tonight. Know what I mean? Off the top of my head. Throw it in, kick it about, knock it about a bit, see what comes out. We all hate getting older, and we still want to be 25 years old, but we're not. So when we try to do something we're too old for and suffer the consequences, what I want from our experienced panel are some excellent excuses we can use so that we can still look cool while dealing with the pain. And I'll go first to give you guys an example. So I decided to be lazy. I'd been surfing. And I walked across a bit of maybe a foot deep, the water was, right at the edge of the rip. And I got back to where we were encamped on the beach, and everything was fine. The next morning, I woke up, I couldn't move my leg because I'd pulled, I don't know, an ACL or type E thing. And so I had to spend the next 6 months going to the physio, and she put electric things on my knee, which was quite interesting, actually. It made my knee rock. But I was able to use the excuse of I'd been surfing with my longboard, right? So has that ever... How about you, Dr. Orlando? Have you ever done something silly which you shouldn't have done and then blamed it on something else?
You know, no, I generally am pretty upfront with what I did. I just sometimes do some cool shit. For instance, we were practicing shoots, MMA shoots in my karate class 2 weeks ago. And doing that, I actually pulled a muscle in my thigh. So when people are asking me why I am limping around and seemingly unable to move, it's part of my MMA practice.
So, cool excuse.
Yeah.
Right.
It happens to be true in his case.
Yeah.
I think you ought to
Well,
quit
it was
now
true
while
in
you're
my.
ahead.
It was true in my case. What about Kathleen?
You don't serve. This is BS.
I did.
He was
surfs the
carrying a
net.
surfboard, but that's all.
I
yes.
have my longboard. It's parked in my shed.
Yeah. That's what you call it when you surf internet porn. Your
On my
longboard.
Yeah, I have a little screen. Kathleen.
Kathleen doesn't call it his longboard.
Well, I find a good excuse for being sort of out of it, or
I don't
not
think
being,
she heard you, so that's okay.
or not being able to do something is along the lines of, I got totally blotto last night. No, I'm not with it yet. How's that? Nobody ever believes me, but there you are.
First of all, Jeremy, how dare you not start the show by acknowledging the International Day of the Woman and congratulating the lovely Kath with
On
the
being
8th
a
of
woman?
March. Happy 8th of March.
Yes.
And happy 8th of March to all the ladies. How dare you? Where are your manners?
Excuse me, I'm an male chauvinist. Why do they have to have their own day?
I actually got a different question about this.
Because you got all the rest of them.
So, like, this was actually a big deal for me today. I spent a lot of time, like, looking at Facebook at all of the people that were wishing
It's
happy
big in
Women's
Europe.
Day.
Yeah. Eastern Europe.
Is it a slap in the face to have an International Women's Day?
It is a little bit, yeah. I mean, I looked at some of the things. Well, this is thanks to all the women who make our world so much better. Really? Our world?
Honestly, I tried to figure out a way to work to make this, because I wanted to say something. I wanted to acknowledge it, but it's like I'm not sure what I'm acknowledging. Am I acknowledging that we are basically shits when it comes to recognizing what I perceive women as going through? And I'm sure this is the way I look at it. I am sure that there are struggles that you deal with that I am unaware of and probably am party to, that I make worse. Hopefully not on a daily basis, but I know that I look at my daughter and realize that she's got to go through all kinds of shit that I'm never ever going to have to go through. And I didn't have the easiest time growing up. So if I say Happy Woman's Day, am I doing that to placate myself? Am I saying congratulations on being a woman?
I'm glad you think about it. I mean, think
No,
about
it's
it.
just to make the women feel better, that's all.
See, that's it.
But is that it?
Think what you would feel like if one day of every year the rest of the world said, well, thanks, guys, for being around and looking nice and providing semen every now and then.
I get a month.
That's it.
Sorry,
I think
what was that to do with semen?
the celebration started in the United States of the International Women's Day as a way for, and it was started by the American Socialist Party as a protest for women's rights,
Right.
and most importantly labor rights, and they weren't getting the same treatment in terms of payments and stuff like this. So it started kind of as a revolt, and it propagated in Russia. And in Russia, it actually led to women's rights to vote. So it actually has a very big historic relevance. It's a good celebration. It's, as far as I can remember, every March 8th was a big deal.
Seriously, the day actually helped lead to the right to vote, or were they both sort of happening at the same time?
No, it triggered it. No single day leads to anything.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of a revolt that helped advance women's rights. This is the part where we need to stop this conversation because we completely veered off of the freaking topic that we started with, and I don't understand how that happened. But
What excuses do you give?
I like to exercise, as you know, and I play soccer and basketball, tennis, and I run and I lift weights. And all of this, obviously, because weirdly, in our mind, we don't age. Like, I look in the mirror and I don't see the old guy. I see the same Evo that I always knew. And I assume that I can do all the same things. And obviously I can't. So, or at least I act like I can when I go and play soccer, and I go and I give it everything I've got. And I try to play the same way basketball. And then I'm in pain because it's just the nature of things. And my ligaments are more brittle. My joints, are different. I have Achilles tendonitis. My right knee screams in pain every morning when I get up. So what
And
I
you're
end
only
up,
23.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So yeah, I wish. So when I actually after I play, I go to work and I can barely walk, and there's nothing I can do to look cool. There's no. I mean, I walk like I'm 100 years old.
So why do
And-
you do it?
Because I can't stop. Because stopping doing this that I've done all my life is going
It's
to
giving
be a
up.
betrayal
Yeah.
to my own self.
I
And,
agree.
yeah, and so I'm gonna go for as long as I can. I'll probably rupture the Achilles tendon, and that's gonna probably put an end to it eventually. But until I can, I'm just gonna try and do what I can to maintain the same thing.
So I think this actually relates back to a question that we kind of glossed over last week.
Yeah.
And that is that only the good die young.
Yeah.
Like, this is what keeps you young. You either die doing the stuff that you love,
Yeah.
or you get old and die.
Yeah,
And I'm
and-
not sure that there's a
Or you get
And
old
if
and
this
decide
was-
to love
yeah.
whatever you're doing, no
And if
matter
this
what
was
age
a
you are.
video cast, your question would be irrelevant because people would look at what I'm wearing, and and that would be the answer to your question.
I
You know,
do
what are
like
you-
the elephant on there.
What are you
Yeah.
doing to look cool?
Yeah.
It's not conscious; it's a subconscious thing. I just, I buy a shirt that I like, that I feel it
the
fits my
difficulty
personality.
we have, as you and I both say on the radio on a regular basis, is we are ridiculously good looking and cool anyway. And
'Cause
that's
it's
always
radio.
a difficulty.
when you say we, are you using like a royal we, or are you actually including Jeremy?
No, he has a W on his hat. That's a W for we. Okay, let's move on to a slightly more serious subject. This is one I give us some thought about. Is Closed borders, limited trade, intolerance to diversity, arms races, nostalgia for days when blacks kept quiet, gays were in the closet, immigrants were invisible, women stayed in the kitchen, climate scientists didn't even exist, and everything cost a penny. For many Americans, imagined happy days. Turnip may yet quickly and quietly unravel President Barack Obama's legacy. However, the devastating consequences of global warming, rising sea levels, extreme droughts and food shortages, more powerful floods, storms, as well as civil and religious disasters may well get in his way. Does the panel think that history teaches us that core advances can't actually be undone, and whilst there may be temporary damage, as the Nazis found, their movement will fade, and the values and priorities of the left will eventually triumph?
This was the most perfectly crafted answer to your own question. It's
you.
absolutely stunning. You were able to answer, ask a question and provide an answer within the same paragraph.
Did you notice that fucker started with blacks being quiet as like a sample of the good old days?
Louis,
I
yeah.
like the part where everything cost a penny. I like that part a lot. But I was listening to a very interesting TED talk, very interesting, with an Israeli historian, and it was a dialogue. There was a host asking questions, and this guy was an incredible scientist, historian. And he said something interesting. He said that mankind has lost its story. And the story was, we lost our story in 2016, he said. And the story was, for decades, the story was that humanity is going to get more globalized, and the laws are going to get more liberalized. And eventually this will lead to a harmonic coexistence. And this was happening decade after decade after decade. And then he said in 2016, we completely lost this story. And we went from globalism to isolationism. And all the isolationist movements now, for whatever reason, whether it's the refugee crisis, whether it's economic, but the isolationist movement is now prevailing, and is taking away this global ideal that mankind had for so many decades. And so he said, now we're lost. We don't have that story anymore because it's been stolen by the new wave of isolationism and nationalism. And now we're kind of lost because all the nationalistic governments now, including our own here, they don't have a plan for the future. They have a plan for the past. It's all retrograde. It's all about make America great again for whatever decade this imaginary prosperity was. But it's not about the future. It's about the past. It's about dragging us back into the bowels of the 20th century, like it was the best century ever, which is probably the worst century for mankind ever. So we're going backwards, and that's the idea, is going backwards to some bizarre idealistic society that never existed. And that's a problem. That's a problem. We don't have a plan for the future.
This is what I think I meant with regard to, for example, the Nazis. They were going back to wanting,
trying to rebuild the Reich.
The Third Reich, but also they'd go back to Crusaders' time, back into 1,000 years beforehand.
Yeah.
And then they would go back even further, the Ark of the Covenant and all that. Mm-hmm. It's very successful for a short while.
Yeah.
Then it dies.
Yeah.
Or if you think about communist regimes, can be very successful for a short while.
Yeah.
In relation to the world. I mean, in relation to the great scheme of things, 50 years is a short while.
Yeah.
You look at Russia. Russia doesn't want to be communist anymore, it seems to me. It wants to be America, but it hasn't quite got its act together yet, but with Putin leading it.
It wants to be a monarchy, right?
Right.
You mentioned it.
And so, you notice that the Queen hasn't died, and the Queen is still there, and
I think she's
not many
actually
people have
waxed.
noticed it.
she may well yet come and have to come back and sort everything out. And she'll be 105 when she does it.
I have a question. So it's globalism versus nationalism right now, right? It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
When has nationalism led to anything good? Eventually, it always leads to wars. right? Nationalism. I mean, patriotism sounds good, but eventually it only exasperates the problems and conflicts between neighbors and eventually leads to some kind of catastrophe. Do we need a catastrophe to snap out of it?
Well, I think that the question is flawed. I think that when you talk about nationalism leading to negative outcomes, that's because that's all we've known. We've truly not yet known a globalist. We've not had a globalist perspective. Even right now, when I'm carrying around this cell phone in my pocket that's made by people in China or Korea for pennies for what I've paid for it.
Yeah.
They would not consider what they are experiencing to be a truly global phenomenon.
We don't have a choice. I think that Trump, it's all doomed. We don't have a choice to go towards nationalism and patriotism and isolationism because we live in a global ecology and we live in an irreversible global economy, like you said. Yeah, and so going isolationist in this environment is important. Are you going to breathe just your own air and you're going to block somehow? Maybe we'll build a wall to block the air coming from other countries. Is that possible? I don't know.
But
I don't think so.
My thought was, you see, as I was thinking about this question, and I've been looking at various stories and stuff like that, the only real real totalitarian regime is now North Korea. Sure, you could say that Putin has all sorts of effects on Russia, but in Russia you can have a business. You can do things. You can drive a car. And stuff.
For now, yeah.
Yeah. Venezuela or Cuba or what have you. It isn't people aren't eating grass.
Yeah. North Korea is the perfect economical model of isolationist country and the consequences. So this is what we have to look forward to, really. I mean,
you got to make a difference between isolationism and nationalism.
I don't know.
There are things to be said for patriotism, for belief in your country. Look, people start out as small units, as families. The emotions, the things that you can do as part of a family are greater than the things that you can do on your own. The reasons you have for doing things great are bigger because you have people to do them for. The same thing happens in small communities where you band people together, and in large communities, and in countries. People do great things in the name of patriotism, for their nation, for their state, whatever. But that's not the same as being an isolationist.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt a moment. May I have an even off? Even off. And I don't want it shaken or stirred.
We do need to
I want
order
it,
while we're here, yes.
But I want it stroked.
You know what?
Please, yeah.
You know what? This guy, you make cocktails, right? Can I please get a Molotov cocktail so I can smack him? I can smack that guy on the head.
And Nacho Supremes. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know where I was in that. Can we go on?
Yeah. It's just
Stroke.
interesting where we're at right now. I wonder what school kids are going to be thinking. If we look back, they do the Second World War, don't they?
No,
And
kids nowadays don't look at the Second World War. But
Don't
go
they?
ahead and make your point.
Oh, I thought they did. I thought that would come under modern history. Do they not look at the Second War?
Modern history
First
is
War?
from the 90s.
Oh, is it? So it's not.
It was before Kim married Kanye.
What about? Well, you have youngish kids. I mean, do they do Vietnam?
My kids are still in. My oldest kid is in 4th grade, so
His
they
kids
don't-
won't know everything because he will teach them. But
Yeah.
I don't know about the school system.
Well, they'll go through it in school. They'll have a cursory knowledge. They'll have a basic understanding.
So my thought is, in 75 years' time, what are kids, assuming there are kids, what are those kids going to be looking at as to what's
There's
going
gonna be
on,
whole chapters
going
on
politically,
Obviously.
internationally right now?
I think eventually we're going to get rid of countries. Eventually we'll have a universal government. But I don't know if it's going to happen this century, maybe next century. But I think it's inevitable. It follows kind of dialectic logic.
Not if global warming actually breaks us up more. In that case, we'll go back to being
was
small
gonna unite us.
communities.
I think global warming is
Well,
going to unite us
here's-
because we'll have no choice. Our back will be to the wall. We'll have to unite to counter it because one country can't do it. Everybody's got to do it.
We're coming
I
up.
don't
We're
know.
going to be, just so you know, we're going to be talking about gene modification. We did this on the radio the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Eva and I, CRISPR. We'll be talking about that in just a second.
Oh, perfect
we'll
example,
be
yeah.
talking about that in just a second. Turnip is being urged to back up his claims that Obama had him wiretapped, and yet Obama's spy chief, who would have been responsible, said it never happened. The FBI say it never happens. What I'm beginning to wonder, and I'd just like the panel's view on this, is are TV shows like Scandal, House of Cards, maybe even West Wing, influencing an actual sitting president?
Them the Claire Danes show,
Oh, Homeland.
Homeland.
Yeah, I think that's
kind of
true.
prophetic,
Yeah,
yeah.
as well as the right wing, outlets on the internet. So
Yeah, I
internet
think-
stories and television shows. That's where he gets his information.
Life
I think that
imitates
that's
art.
I think that that's yeah. I think that there's two questions there. I think the first question is, do TV shows influence politicians? And I think that's a trivially true statement. I think that not
What do you
just
mean?
Trump.
Can you just explain what you mean by that?
I think that's
Trivially-
what I'm about to do. I
Oh,
think
right.
that not just Trump is influenced by what he sees on TV shows. I would hazard a guess that every president is influenced by what they see on TV shows. Maybe not as directly as Trump. Maybe noticing a particular trend. Like there are, if you watch TV shows, if you watch primetime TV, there is a political bent to a surprising number of shows right now. There is a zeitgeist of political or activity that really hasn't existed in primetime TV for most of my life. You just didn't see people.
Leave it to be
Galvanized like that.
never really address the subject. did it?
Exactly.
No.
So there are trends that, quite honestly, a smart politician should be gleaning from what's going on in pop culture. At least that's my opinion. That's not to say that I want my president to be sitting there watching, Supergirl. But
because he probably thinks that she's actually out there,
Right.
waiting to be called on.
Right. So I think that there is a certain amount of knowledge that can be gleaned from what's going on in the mind of the people that are writing shows and movies of your time. So I would hazard a guess that if you are a smart politician, this is not to say that Trump is smart, because I don't think he is, but I think that without question, I think that politicians should be getting information from.
But they have to know the difference between information and fantasy.
No. I agree.
Yeah.
So that leads to the second part of the question, which is Trump building policy based on what he sees on fictional shows
I think it's undeniable.
and
He is.
internet sites.
and
yeah.
internet sites?
Yes.
And I think that he has demonstrated that. I think that it is provable that he is repeating what he sees on, Fox News or whatever show you want to
Yeah.
attribute to him. And I think that
And he
is
doesn't understand what he heard on that either.
right. And he seems to be. He tweeted that Obama wiretapped him as though he didn't have the wherewithal and the resources to find out if Obama had wiretapped him. There's something very, very disturbing
Yeah.
about that.
Well, last Wednesday, we predicted various things that then came true. The media internally are starting to talk about there is something afoot, and that I suspect, just from my dealings with media, is that some media know what it is already.
Something afoot, meaning
The-
smoke, there's fire.
Yeah,
There's too much smoke.
there's
Or as
too-
Joe Rogan would say, there's fuckery afoot.
There's too much. There's
Yeah.
too much smoke, and interestingly, Sean Spicer, the White House,
Yeah.
is
Oh,
getting.
yeah.
He's
Goebbels.
he is getting ratings.
Don't equate Spicer
He's
to
getting.
Goebbels.
He's
Holy
getting.
shit.
He's getting ratings up with the Kardashians. He's getting amazing
Who?
ratings.
Goebbels? Spicer?
I have a signed picture of Goebbels at home.
You do?
I do.
Oh, gosh, you've got
The
some.
first spin meister.
Famously, he said that a lie repeated enough times becomes truth, and the most outrageous the lie, the most likely it is to be accepted as truth. And I think somebody's following his footsteps. So.
Goebbels was a very interesting man. So let's
I'd like to see him spell it, though.
Yes.
IT.
Oh, thank you.
Before we get to CRISPR, I just want to ask a quick. We'll do a light question, then we'll do some serious stuff. Did your family play games? I married into a family that really loves playing games and plays cards and all that sort of thing. And we didn't.
Circle jerk.
We had.
Oh, that is so sick.
Evo, your family, do they go? Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
Did your family play games? What was your family's go-to? Monopoly, Twister, Swinging, Scrabble, and so on.
Make a twister.
My family played cards. My family played. If there is a card game that made it into the big Hoyle book of cards, my family has played it. But we specialized in spades. We would
spades is
yeah,
great.
We would play spades from any time there were four of us that weren't occupied with something else to whenever there weren't four
Hearts
of
works
us.
better because you can add people and drop people as you like. Doesn't have to have a certain number.
My parents played a simplified version of bridge that's very popular in Bulgaria. My grandparents did. My parents didn't. My grandparents
Sort of a
were
whist
obsessed.
type thing.
Yeah, bridge, but it was different. It was simple, and they played it with friends, and they would come every weekend to their apartment, and they would have drinks and food and play cards, and I would watch them for hours play because they wouldn't let me play. You had to be a certain age, and we also played. My father was an incredible chess player, and I played chess with him, and he always beat me. He never let me win. It was frustrating, and I was getting really ambitious to get him, and I never beat him, ever.
Is it your father or your grandfather?
My father.
Your
As
father.
I got better and better and older, I worked on it, and I read a lot of literature, and I still couldn't beat him. He just knew how my mind worked and just always got me.
My grandfather played gin rummy with all his grandkids. I played him many, many times. Never beat him.
How does it work? I hate gin and rum. Is it maybe gin and tonic? Is it much better?
So we're going to keep this bit short, but I learned about a new thing the other day which I found fascinating, and I happen to know a lot of my listeners did. Clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that.
Otherwise
CRISPR.
known as CRISPR, gene modification. This new procedure, I think, will be more important than the discovery of the antibiotic penicillin.
Yes.
By British Alexander Fleming. He was a Scotsman in 1928.
Of course.
It may even change the human world as we know it, for the better, perhaps.
Yeah.
But what might be some unintended consequences? Good things, eradicate cancer and other genetic diseases like haemophilia.
Yeah.
Let's have Ivo. You know more about this.
Well, yeah, because I've been interested in it for a long time, and we spoke with you on the radio recently about it. So it's a very, very interesting gene editing technique. And to the listeners, real quick and very simplified, this is basically the defense mechanism that bacteria has against viruses. So bacteria, when it is invaded by a virus, has a very bizarre immune system that releases genetic material that is able to penetrate the very genome of the virus and change it. And the way this works is right through those repeats, it's RNA delivery system. So there's DNA, there's RNA, ribonucleic acid. So the RNA is like a carrier. It delivers a piece of information, and you can imagine it as letters in a word, or a couple of words in a sentence. That this material is so uniquely equipped that it can go into the gene and cut and paste and take those few letters out and replace them with its own letters. And this is extremely cheap, and it can be controlled synthetically. So we were able to borrow this from bacteria, and now we can selectively go into whatever gene we want and change the very information and structure of the gene. So we can go into a cancer cell, and we can turn off this part that commands the cancer cell to reproduce and just turn it off, and cancer stops. So we're talking about complete cure of cancer, complete, and it's very cheap. That's what's shocking. It's very cheap, very easy. The delivery mechanism is a virus. So they're talking about injecting a virus in your eye that will stop cataract. They're talking about injecting specific virus with specific genetic information. It's synthetically programmed into the cancer cells and just completely turn them off, and it's over. No cancer. The problem is right now, they still are not 100% sure if there's going to be side effects and what would be the consequence of messing with the very structure of our genome.
Well, there's a precursor problem, and that is that they're not still 100% sure of what every gene does. Part of the CRISPR program is further mapping the genome to make
We map the genome.
But even though we know where the genes are, we don't know what each gene individually changes.
Yeah, they can do some amazing things right now, like immediately. For example, they cured completely acute sickle cell anemia in a girl. Completely cured it with CRISPR. The repercussions of this can be incredible. Also, they cured completely muscular dystrophy in mice with no side effects. And this is shocking. But these are all of those disorders are mutation in a single gene. So they're now doing it very carefully, replacing a single, like working with a single gene. There's a lot of disorders that involve multiple genes, and that's where they get a little scared. Also, which is what we talked about with Jeremy, it was very interesting, is we are capable right now, they're capable of going in and changing your genes so you start producing enormous amounts of EPO. And this is, of course, the protein that helps carry oxygen to your cells and to your muscle cells. So we can make super athletes. They're capable of now, they know the gene that's responsible for fast twitch muscle fibers. They can go in with CRISPR technology and get to that gene and make you produce fast twitch so everybody can be a sprinter on the level of Usain Bolt. You know, and they can do those things so we can build super soldiers, we can build super athletes, we can build designer babies. So this has very interesting and very dangerous social implications.
And guess which of these things are going to be
engineering.
done first? Do you think we're going to produce super soldiers or cure diseases? Which one?
Of course, super soldiers.
Which one's going to be widespread first?
Right now, I'll tell you which country is going to do it first. China. China's going to do it first.
China.
They're far ahead of us.
China.
Even though CRISPR was created here by two incredible lady scientists. Elizabeth Carpenter Eleanor Carpenter, I'm sorry, in University of California, Berkeley. But China is so far ahead of us because they're deregulated. They have actually successfully used CRISPR to edit the genes of a human embryo. It was not a viable human embryo. It didn't turn into a human being, but they used a non-viable human embryo and successfully edited exact genes that they wanted. They're so far ahead. They're a step away from doing things like this. And we talked with Jeremy about a scenario. In Iceland recently, they've discovered that Icelandic people barely suffer from Alzheimer's. And they identified the gene responsible for protecting against this protein, the tau protein that causes Alzheimer's. So if they offer you, they will do a simple test to the kid before it's born, to the embryo before it's born, and they offer you, they say, hey, for $1,000 more, we can introduce using CRISPR this gene that's going to protect your child forever from Alzheimer's. Wouldn't you do it? If it's safe.
The
question.
issue that they have, or they had, let's say 20 years ago, in testing for diseases like hemophilia,
Yeah.
was that the test had to be taken from the fetus.
Yes.
and that led to aborted fetuses, that the fetus just couldn't deal with
The testing.
the testing, and so unless one had an amazing surgeon doing it,
Yeah.
you could lose the fetus, and as a family that has happened to us. So that's
Everything
why I'm interested in this.
Everything I've
So-
read says that it's very simple. It's very simple and safe.
So, I don't know. It's a tough question. When we were having our kids, both my wife and I are no longer in our 20s. So we did the genetic tests for our kids before they were born. And I really want to equate what you just described to having those genetic tests done.
Yeah.
But that, it's become a dirty phrase, but it becomes a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, what if I want blue eyes for my kid?
Yes, and that's going to be very easy to achieve. And this is, I know it sounds like science fiction, but it's more and more sciencey and less fiction-y. And it's really here. It's around the corner. It's going to happen in the next 10 years. We're going to have designer babies. We're going to have designer babies. People can choose how tall their kids are going to be, what color eyes, like you said. They will control this process. And the richer you are, the more eugenics will be involved, And so I'm really worried
So
about
I could
this.
have babies that look just like me.
Well, that's the easiest thing.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But
Interestingly, if you look at the UK and other countries that have a national health service,
yeah.
they will be providing this service for
Against
people.
diseases.
Yeah, for
So
people.
do you
So,
guys-
for instance, females carry haemophilia, but they can't have haemophilia,
Yeah.
right? And so males have haemophilia,
Yeah.
but they don't pass it on.
Yeah.
So it's passed on down the female.
Yeah.
Does your health service provide cosmetic surgery currently?
It depends on the issue. It depends on whether the doctors feel that the patient needs it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's an
If they
elective.
just burned off, yes, they do.
Here's an interesting
Otherwise,
dilemma.
it's elective.
Here's an interesting dilemma, guys. Think about this. Those changes that are delivered through CRISPR are permanent, meaning that they will be passed from generation to generation. And we are right there. We're going to start doing this in the next decade. So the question is, are we messing with evolution itself?
We
You
are
know,
without question messing with
with-
evolution, but
We are
always
accelerating
do that.
evolution to ridiculous pace. So.
No, we always do that. Yeah, the question is like, are we doing it at a much more dangerous pace than we've always done? And without question, it definitely sounds scarier.
Yeah.
It sounds like we are messing with forces that we can't possibly understand.
Yeah.
Isn't
But at the
this-
same time, if there is a good Lord up there, or whoever, if there's a whoever, or if there isn't anybody at all,
Yeah.
is this not part of human evolution?
We still have to see. So far, all the tests and everything they've done seems to be safe, but long-term side effects are still not determined. So, I mean, I might be like 7 feet tall and hyper intelligent, designed that way. But what's the point if suddenly my kidneys turn into silver nitrate or my blood starts flowing in reverse? So the question is,
You've seen Wall-E.
yes. What was that?
The people
part?
are no longer able to walk. They're
Oh,
like,
that's because they just don't move.
maybe they got too involved with CRISPR.
Oh, I see. I see. So
Maybe CRISPR has been here before.
maybe it is, but it's a
knows?
very interesting topic, and its ethics are involved, government regulation, and here's the part that connects this to what we were talking about: global versus national. We don't really have a choice because China is going to use CRISPR. China is going to use CRISPR. Russia is going to use it. They're starting to design soldiers and athletes and whatnot. And we will have to do it as well. We might be overregulated. We might try to control it, but we will be pushed globally by the other countries to deregulate, and so everything's connected.
Do you? Yeah, I
It's a
mean,
domino.
I always find this slightly amusing. When I'm here in America, listening to you guys, and I listen to my Bulgarian friend who's way ahead of the locals,
No.
what's going on. But have you noticed how long the Queen Mother lived for? She was 101.
So was my grandma.
So-
What's your
The
point?
they know things.
They know they're genetically engineered.
They know things. They're
They invented the
genetically.
CRISPR gene.
They're genetically.
Oh.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
see.
they're doing something. They have science on their side,
Yeah.
like secret science. Except all of this is negated by the fact that William lost his hair so early. You know, if he knew CRISPR, he would have like a full bushy.
Or
You
if he'd
know.
known Trump.
And Charles would have had those ears tucked in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So no, they didn't do
But
it.
it's interesting how we start to learn things. So we all hate the Nazis. Everybody in this room hates the Nazis. Yet Germans who are around 75 to 90 years old have very low cancer rates. Why? Because the Nazi ethos was that everybody ate healthy.
It's
And so
propaganda.
for about this is
Yeah.
out there in the medical
Yeah.
journals at the moment.
Yeah.
This story is hitting the media in the last few days.
Yeah.
They've suddenly realized that what Germans were eating in the late 30s, those people who were doing that eating have very low rates of cancer
Yeah.
and other head issues, Alzheimer's and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there a link? Who knows?
Who knows?
yeah, you just said they ate well.
You know what? That scientist, the TED Talk that I was talking about, he said something very interesting. He said that despite all the gloom and doom and the paranoia that's being deliberately, imposed on us, we live in an unprecedented time of prosperity in the world. Because for the first time in human history, right now, more people are dying from eating too much than from eating too little. And for the first time in human history, more people are going to get killed by suicide than by other human beings. So basically,
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy that professor's initial thought that we've lost our human story in 2016. Like all the other stuff is I follow and I go along with, but I don't think that we've been living in this liberal. Progressive state of mind long enough.
The macro view is the movement was towards this.
But that
overall
movement has really only existed for like 50 years.
Yeah, that's what he said. 30, 40, 3-4 decades.
Yeah, but that's not the human story. I mean,
No, he's talking about a specific story, not the entire human story.
a specific.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I get it. Okay,
He was worried that we lost that story.
And 50 years is just a zit on the it's a
ass
pimple
of.
on the ass of a
History.
chimpanzee.
No, that makes.
I love the way he raises the level of the conversation.
that. Yes.
Chimpanzee Ass Pimple, great name for a rock band.
You've been listening to another Wednesday Night Undressed. If you're interested, look up more about CRISPR gene modification. Clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats
Yes.
is what we were talking about. Want to thank the magic Dr. Orlando, the indefatigable Kathleen Taylor,
Yo.
the Transylvanian Lord of Pheromones, Ivo Ivanov, and me, Jeremy Taylor. Let's thank our engineers today,
Yay!
Eric and Neil. And you can catch this on... Where can we catch this if people want to listen to this, if they're not already listening?
Go find us on iTunes. Just look for Wednesday Night Undressed, or you can go to WednesdayNightUndressed.com.
You can also find us at Paris Porn, RedTube, various other places where we are there inadvertently.
All right.